Do us a quick favor, guys. Hit the follow, subscribe button. Share this with someone who would benefit from it. And help us grow, as the more we grow, the better the episodes we'll get. Thanks, guys, for helping us. And let's get into the episode. This is my vision. This is my plan. I know how to make it work. And I want to go out doing it at 100%. Not going, oh, you know what, maybe I shouldn't have had that birthday because that's just trained too many different patterns in my life and I steered a little bit too far off. I want to know that I did everything I can to get where I am or to get to where I wanted to go, even if I didn't get there, okay?
And he's here. He is here. Cristiano has entered the building. Welcome, wherever you are, to the Old Trafford Theatre.
Welcome back to the Sculpted Podcast. Today's episode, it is about birthdays. I hate birthdays. Today's my birthday, alright? A disclaimer for this episode is that I don't have a massive issue for the intrinsic reasons for celebrating birthdays. Okay, so I think that celebrating birthdays involves receiving attention, well wishes, gifts from friends and family. This is tapping into a fundamental human instinct for validation and recognition. From an early age, we seek acknowledgement from our caregivers and peers, and birthdays provide an annual opportunity for this validation, reminding us that we are cherished and appreciated by our loved ones. Social cohesion, so birthdays serve as a social glue, fostering cohesion with families and communities. These celebrations bring people together, providing a shared occasion to express affection. They strengthen social bonds. Humans are inherently social creatures, and we love gatherings, and birthdays help maintain these connections. The act of celebrating someone's birthday is often reciprocated when it's someone else's turn. Okay, so when I play up or if I do something for someone's birthday, it's not typically for them. It's a very selfish way of saying it. Okay, it's because there is a common cohesion that cohesion, whatever that word is, that if you know that you will do this for them, they will do it for you. Okay. So that's not including love for people. Like if I really, really love you, then I go out of my way to do it. And sometimes I expect nothing in return. And that's completely okay. So by participating in birthday celebrations, we contribute to the cycle of giving and receiving, reinforcing the interconnectedness. Acknowledgement of effort. Even if we acknowledge that birthdays are in a way a handout of a celebration, they also reflect the recognition of life's challenges and effort it takes to navigate them, right? So surviving another year, especially in the face of life's trials and tribulation, is an accomplishment worth celebrating. Don't get me wrong, okay? I think that celebrating a birthday like that, there is value in that, okay? Sure, you are a year older than you were last year. That aligns with our instinct human traits, right? Celebrating birthdays tap into our innate capacity, a shared joy and happiness. So when we witness someone delighted during the celebration, it often brings joy to those around them. This collective experience of happiness and celebration highlights our natural inclination to come together in the spirit of positivity and joy. Right? We're social creatures, and this is an innate feeling for humans to do. In essence, celebrating birthdays showcases our intrinsic need for validation and social connection, right? While it may seem contradictory that we celebrate something as basic as a passage of time, it is a testament to our complex human nature. Birthdays serve as a microcosm for our broader social instincts and the way in which we navigate relationships and express our appreciation for one another. So, I want to make that clear. It's a lot to unpack for literally just the first few minutes, but the the most raw form of celebrating someone's birthday. It's like a tradition. It's like a culture thing that everyone does. Well, it varies from culture to culture, but in the Western cultures, we make birthdays a massive celebration. But if we take it down to its most rawest form, we are celebrating another year of life. That is an accomplishment at a very animalistic level, right? If I am surviving another year, it means that I have fed myself enough. It does mean that I've hunted and gathered enough food, shelter. I've got, all of this. That is an accomplishment itself. But today, when these things are given, what are we truly celebrating? We aren't truly celebrating much. If I could do absolutely nothing for a year and still expect to celebrate my birthday, what have I truly achieved? I haven't truly achieved much. The paradox of birthdays. So the fact that you get one every single year, regardless of your achievements, kind of devalues a birthday when all of the struggle we no longer have, right? So what I'm saying is that if birthdays were a tradition passed on from our ancestors, it makes sense to why they celebrated it, because every year was a gift. They probably didn't even get gifts back then. It was probably that they want to celebrate that they got through another year, right? They want to celebrate that lion knocking at their door didn't get them and they got it. That's what they're celebrating. But for us, when we don't have to worry about these things, then we're celebrating the fact that the Earth has done another 360 spin and we're in the middle of it. That's all we're celebrating, okay? Imagine celebrating every single time you got a handout. Where would that lead us? Probably not far, okay? Because we get, in the world that we live in, having food in my fridge is a handout. Sure, there is an exchange for the money and the time and effort that I put into that food, but realistically, the effort, time, and money that I had to put in to get that piece of food is nothing compared to the effort and time that my ancestors would have had to do. So, when we celebrate these handouts, the exchange isn't there. The exchange was there for people back in, our ancestors' days. Imagine your neighbor and imagine how he lives a comfortable life, quite unremarkable, right? He has a normal routine job. He has a small group of friends and he spends most of his evenings watching TV. Through the day, does his job, quite boring, comes back home, sits on TV, watches it, done. Despite his lack of exceptional achievements, right? He's just living a standard life, paying his, rent, whatever it is. Despite his lack of exceptional achievements, every single year, John's birthday comes around, and he gets to celebrate it with his family and friends. Now, celebrating another year going past, great. It's a good thing. Celebrating someone's birthday for them turning a year older or whatever it is, and it being such a massive event where, it's a massive party and it's not really spent with those who mean the most to you, I think is absolute hedonism. That's a very abrupt way of saying it, but I think it's hedonism. And it's tapping into our most rawest human value, which makes sense. But I think that honestly it's not good. I don't like it. And that's why you'll never see me do it. And that's why you've never seen me do that. John hasn't done anything. This is the neighbor. Sorry, I just said that. John. It's not my neighbor. Hypothetically speaking, John. He hasn't done anything extraordinary. Yet he's celebrated on his birthday, much like receiving a participation ribbon in a race that he really didn't run. That's got to do with where we're imagining that our neighbor had an affluent party where he's having all friends, family, and people outside of his social circle come around, right? They're celebrating this event that really wasn't that fantastic. And then again, I don't even like celebrating events that are truly that fantastic. But is it right that we celebrate something as fundamental as our own existence in this way? A few thousand years ago when it was such a massive thing that we we're not guaranteed another year. I'm not saying that. I don't know. I might not be alive in a year. We're not guaranteed the next year. But when it is typically given to us, if I was to do absolutely nothing tomorrow and then repeat that for the next 365 days, and I'm 20 years old, and that was a pretty high chance that would be given to me. Actually, it's probably higher chances if I do absolutely nothing that year would be given to me. what am I achieving? I'm really not achieving much, okay? So does it inadvertently encourage a culture of entitlement and complacency? To me, I think it does. Now, of course, I'm thinking about the people on the most extreme level. People who are doing the ridiculous parties, they're receiving the most ridiculous amounts of external and all these intrinsic behaviors we have as humans. People who are doing it at the highest level, right? If you're having a nice little birthday celebration with your family, I can't complain, right? That's what I do. But receiving gifts, receiving, exuberant amounts of money, things like that, I think it's just, I don't like it. I think it's really stupid. The culture of entitlement, and this is where it kind of leans into the most extreme versions, but when I break it down, we can see how this could be transcending through people, okay? People like you and me. So, celebrating birthdays might contribute to a culture of entitlement because doing nothing and expecting things in return, that is what a birthday is, essentially. Okay, so shifting that same mindset means when you do nothing, you expect things in return. When you do nothing and get rewarded for it, you are training laziness and entitlement. So if I was to, essentially, the birthday is a very good example of it, but it's not very often in life where there is something that is almost guaranteed. I mean, obviously, a year isn't guaranteed, but for someone like you and me, most of the time, next year is pretty guaranteed. And if I was to do absolutely nothing, it's pretty likely that next year would come. So if I was to do absolutely nothing, if I was just to sit around and not study for a test that was coming up and just relax, I don't care. I don't have any previous knowledge or anything like that. It's a completely new thing for me, and I expect to get an A+, or I expect to get rewarded for it. What are you doing? That's just not how the world works. The world doesn't work like that. You actually have to do the due diligence to be rewarded for those things. What birthdays are doing is a handout. It is a given, okay? And studies show that entitlement mindsets can hinder personal development. So, lower achievement levels. Studies have suggested that individuals with a strong sense of entitlement may be less likely to set ambitious goals or put in effort required to achieve success. Makes a lot of sense. This can lead to lower achievements in both academic and professional settings. Higher levels of unhappiness. Entitlement has been associated with higher levels of dissatisfaction and unhappiness. So people with a strong sense of entitlement may have unrealistic expectations about life and feel disappointed when it really doesn't meet those expectations. Decreased well-being. Research has shown that a negative correlation between entitlement and overall well-being. People with strong entitlement mindsets may experience more stress and lower satisfaction in life. Interpersonal conflicts. Entitlement can lead to conflicts in personal relationships. Individuals who feel entitlement may have difficulty understanding or empathizing with others' perspectives, which can strain relationships. Lower resilience. That makes a lot of sense, right? Entitlement may be linked to lower levels of psychological resilience. When faced with setbacks or challenges, individuals with high entitlement may struggle to cope effectively, leading to feelings of helplessness or depression, because they've been trained not to take action even when they expect rewards. Academic performance. Studies have indicated that entitlement can negatively impact academic performance. Students with a strong sense of entitlement may be less motivated to study or put in the necessary effort, resulting in lower grades. So when they don't take the accountability and they still expect something in return, this is training a very high sense of entitlement and low sense of accountability. Now, of course, you might be thinking to yourself, how has this got anything to do with birthdays? And it doesn't really. But because it doesn't really, because of how infrequent birthdays are, right? So if you were celebrating every single handout that you got, you wouldn't even be able to really function throughout a day. But when you think like me, and you think that every single handout, you don't even want handouts. When my parents want to send me money, I actually get a little bit annoyed, I'm like, no, what have I done what have I done for that? I don't actually deserve it. Now, that mindset also might hinder in some professions, right? I really struggle to even, it's like imposter syndrome. I struggle to understand why I even deserve to get paid for my time and doing things. So that definitely can hinder in some areas, but also help in others, right? If I have that same mindset, then I'm more likely to work more, okay? So, well, that depends on the person. If the incentives are really high, then you work more. But for me, that's what the case is, okay? So when you think like me, at every single time you get a handout, you tend to neglect it because you want to train yourself to be so driven by an incentive that you must act. Handouts are almost offensive to you, okay? You may be thinking, what are you talking about? But there will be someone who's listening who understands me. And to that person who's listening who understands me, and there should be more than one, okay? You're a highly successful individual and you expect the most from yourself, and that's a good thing. Now, also, if you are on the other end and you don't understand me at all, I'm not saying it's a bad thing at all, although the standards and expectations that you set for yourself aren't as grand as mine. And that is a fact, is an uncomfortable truth. But if that's the life that you want to live, I'm not going to bash you for that. I'm just stating the facts. And this podcast isn't for you. This podcast is for the exceptional people, okay? Now, I'm not talking about exceptional as being the best. I'm talking about exceptional being the worst and the best. The people who want to be different from the norm. Habit and reward. The habit reward system, often referred to as the habit loop, is a psychological concept that explains how habits are formed and maintained. It was popularized by Charles Duhigg in his book, The Power of Habit. This loop consists of 3 key concepts: cue, trigger, routine, reward. Well, cue or trigger, routine, and reward. I'll give you an example. So cue, which is the trigger, the cue is the initial signal of stimulus that prompts your brain to start a specific habit. It's the trigger that tells you it's time to engage in that habit. Cues can take various forms, such as a specific time of day, a particular location, an emotion, a presence of a certain people or object. For example, feeling stressed, that cue might trigger the habit of reaching for a snack. Okay. The routine. The routine is the actual behavior or action you take in response to that cue. It's the habit itself that you perform almost automatically. This can be a physical action, a mental process, or a combination of both. In the example above, the routine is eating a snack in response to feeling stressed. The reward is the positive outcome or benefit you gain from completing the routine. It's what reinforces the habit loop and makes you more likely to repeat it in the future. Rewards are essential because they provide a sense of satisfaction, pleasure, or relief, which your brain associates with the habit. In the case of a snack habit, the reward might be the immediate feeling of comfort or reduced stress, a dopamine hit essentially. So when you have the dopamine hit, your brain is telling yourself that cue and trigger is then benefited from that routine, okay? So here's how the habit loop works in practice. The trigger or cue, let's say you have a habit of going for a run every morning. The cue could be setting your alarm for 6 a.m. The routine would be the actual act of going for your run. You put on your running shoes and head out the door. The reward might be the same sense of accomplishment, increased energy, improved mood you experience after the run. Your brain associates these positive feelings with this habit. Over time, as you consistently follow this loop, the habit becomes ingrained in your daily life. Your brain belongs to anticipate the reward associated with the habit, making them more automatic and less reliant on conscious decision-making. This is how habits become a part of your daily routine. Understanding the habit loop can be valuable for the breaking unhealthy habits and establishing positive ones. By identifying the cues and rewards one associated with the habit, you can work on changing the routine to achieve better outcomes or replacing unhealthy habits with more beneficial ones. Now, again, you may be thinking where I'm going to put this into birthdays. But what I'm saying is that the reason why I hate birthdays so much is because I have such a strong habit. I'm programmed to automatically identify habits in my life where I do nothing and get something in return, that's bad. When I do something and get something in return for doing it, that is good. So anything in my life, this filter that I have of excellence, Anything where I get given something for doing nothing, I immediately think no. Now, if we flip this, someone who immediately says yes to doing absolutely nothing, this is a habit, okay? So the cue, right, that they see, they do nothing. The routine, they do nothing. The reward, they get a reward. How does that make sense? Okay, so when I do a cue, if I get up for the run, 6 a.m., the routine, I do it. The reward, I get it. The cue, routine, nothing, reward given. Now, if we think about that in itself, that 3-step process of doing absolutely nothing and then getting the reward, if we then think about that again, compound it onto itself. So if that's 2 times, if that's 3 times, that then becomes a routine in itself. That reward for doing those things, those cues, triggers, routine, and rewards, they circle around each other. That's all you know. That's all you know. That sense of entitlement, that reward that you get for doing absolutely nothing, that becomes your whole life. Now, of course, very extreme. Very few people would even have this. But when you're on the exact opposite level, handouts are like offensive, pretty much. Now, I want to make this clear that I don't have a massive thing wrong with it, with a birthday, right? I understand why, like, if I was to have a more affluent birthday than what I have, it makes sense. You know, it's a core thing of being a human being. I want social validation. I want social interactions. As a human being, we're social creatures, right? It makes sense to why you probably want to go a little bit over the top. But what that does is it trains you into a bad way of thinking. And maybe it doesn't train you immediately. Maybe it will never train you. But it can. And for someone who calibrates their brain like me, the reason why I would rather not do that and keep a minimalistic birthday for forever is because that's just not the way that I want to be perceived. That's not the way that I want to act as an individual. That's not how I stay aligned with where I want to go. When I have an exception for the things that I do, that is now an outlier. Now, of course, I'm not defined by the outliers, although when I am striving for excellence, the outliers I want to get rid of. When I'm thinking of sculpting, I want to get rid of that, okay? So when you think like me, a birthday is something that you want to get rid of, okay? That's why. Now, you probably think I'm an extremist like that. And you know what? I am. But I also don't think that's hindering me. I don't think that having a great birthday party or getting gifts, having an affluent birthday party is really going to actually make a positive impact. I don't think that's going to do a massive positive impact in my life. I don't think that also doing absolutely nothing is going to make a positive impact in my life. But the reason why I don't want to do too much is because this is my vision. This is my plan. I know how to make it work. And I want to go out doing it at 100%. Not going, oh, you know what, maybe I shouldn't have had that birthday because that's just trained too many different patterns in my life and I steered a little bit too far off. I want to know that I did everything I can to get where I am or to get to where I wanted to go, even if I didn't get there, okay? So now, alternative approaches for birthdays. Now, you might be thinking, what am I doing on my birthday? I'll tell you what I'm doing, okay? Nothing. Calling with my family. I'll go out today. I'll go to the shops. I might spend some money, but that's not because it's necessarily my birthday. It's because it's my birthday, I got money for my birthday, right? That's not the real reason. And is that a bad way of doing it? Yeah. You know, even when I'm thinking about it, I probably shouldn't buy things just because it's my birthday, but because it's my birthday, I got a bit of money now, I can spend it. You know what? I might not even buy anything today. I might just look at stuff. You know, it's almost just an excuse for me to waste time, and I don't even like that it's an excuse. And I think that we have a social norm of where birthdays are so generally accepted that it is an excuse to celebrate, and everyone around you also knows that it's an excuse to celebrate. And when we have this common cohesion between everyone that this is the general thing that we will do, and yes, it's probably an excuse to be lazy, but you know what, we're all going to do it, and I expect it in return, then it's just generally accepted, okay? Now, again, I don't have a massive issue with it. I think it's quite nice, and it's nice because it's an excuse for me to put tools down. But when I'm someone who doesn't like to put the tools down, then I feel guilty for it. And when I feel guilty for it, then I'm thinking, okay, maybe I won't do that next time, or maybe I'll tone it down a little bit. But when I still feel guilty for straying outside of where I want to go, then it really has to be an exception. I wouldn't be doing it. You know, say if there's 52 weeks in a year and every single week there's a friend's birthday, I'm not going to be able to do that every week. I can't, okay? So let's get into some alternative approaches, because you got to work it out for yourself as well. You got to think about, okay, well, the reward that I get for a party, or the reward I get for gifts or whatever, you have to weigh this out yourself. Now, I'm in quite a rare case where I don't have family around me. I don't have millions of dollars to spend. Even if I was to try and have an affluent party, best of luck to me. I'm not going to be able to pull it off. Minimalism. Some individuals embrace a minimalistic style and lifestyle. They may see a birthday celebration as an excessive, wasteful endeavor, like I kind of do. They may prefer to focus on meaningful experiences or spending time with loved ones rather than celebrating elaborate gifts and parties. Now, I think that's a really good one for me, right? I'm celebrating that I'm a year older, that I've survived another year. That's it. I'm not celebrating that, you know, I'm Nicholas Craven, I'm 20 years old, I'm 19 years old. That's not what I'm celebrating. I'm celebrating that now I am a year older. I'm on this earth again, right? I'm thankful that I'm on this earth again for another year. That's what I'm celebrating. And I'm celebrating that with people who I love, okay? I'm thankful that I'm here for another year with them. Cultural differences. In some cultures, birthdays are not as extensively celebrated as they are in some others, right? Some other cultures place more emphasis on their milestones or events in a person's life. Aging and milestones. For some birthdays, they can be a reminder of aging, and they may prefer not to draw attention to this fact. They might believe that personal growth and achievement should be celebrated independently of age. Now, I said that I also have a degree of this. I hate that I'm a year older, because what that means is it's forcing me to reflect on how unsuccessful I've been. Even if I'm being successful, it's forcing me to reflect on how unsuccessful I've been, okay? Now, good or bad, I don't think that has enough power to really dictate too much change. Although, one key driving factor of why I take so much action is because of someone like me. We have always the idea that death is around the corner, right? Mortality is a very, very big driving factor. And now, you might think that's an extreme way of thinking. It is, but also, it's actually a common way of thinking. A lot of people have a shared philosophy on that. They probably don't vocalize it like I have there. That's like a very abrupt way of saying it, but that's very common, right? The reason why I want to do all of these things is because I know tomorrow is not guaranteed, just like next year is not guaranteed, which is why an intrinsic celebration of a birthday is appropriate. Tomorrow isn't guaranteed, so I have to celebrate that. Now, celebrating it with a massive party, no, but I'm thankful for it. Now, the last point, which kind of tied in with the most recent there, was that everyday appreciation. Some people can argue that we should express love and appreciation for our friends, family, regularly, rather than waiting for a birthday, right? They emphasize showing gratitude and care throughout the year. Now, I also like that one, because, as I said, tomorrow is not guaranteed. Now, next year isn't guaranteed, but I don't think that's something that we should necessarily celebrate every year. Like, I think that we need to, as humans, we're so ungrateful. We're so ungrateful creatures. And now, this is through homeostasis. We have a very high level of adaptation. If I'm put in an environment, I will most likely be able to adapt and thrive in it. If you put a hamster in the ocean, they'll probably die. Us, if we were to be put in the ocean, we can probably survive that. And we can probably find a way to even get out of that situation. Now, a hamster, they're dead. Humans, we're very good at adapting. Now, what I mean by that is that when we think about it in life, right, we aren't grateful for the small day-to-day things. Now, I'm not a person who's also grateful for the small day-to-day things. But what the birthday does is that it forces reflection onto that. But I think that what this is saying, and what I also do agree with, is that being grateful for the things today is as important as being grateful for the things for the past year. So minimalism, aging, and focusing on everyday appreciation, those are the three things why I don't like birthdays. And I think that that's my more appropriate approaches. Now, that could be completely individual. It is completely individual. But I think the breakdown of where the human intrinsic value of celebrating a birthday comes from helps you understand why I don't like birthdays. Okay? It's extreme. The reason why I hate birthdays, it's extreme. But I am extreme. Okay? When you drive this much extra standard from yourself, you have to be extreme. And when you break it down like I have today, I hope that you can understand where I come from. Now, someone who celebrates a birthday very affluently and someone who doesn't at all, I can't say that there was a higher intrinsic value to that person. I'm not going to moral high ground, right? I understand why the people do it. I could see myself doing it as well, but that's not where I want to go down. And maybe the people who do that, they don't think like me, therefore, okay, there's a level of ignorance there that maybe they don't understand what they're doing, maybe they don't know why they're doing it. Okay, that's fine, whatever, but that's just not me, all right? So do with that what you will. Think about it. Happy birthday to me. I don't really care. Thank you. I'm on this earth for another day, right? If you don't know, I had a recent health scare as well, which it puts it in perspective for me, right? I was told that I might have a 50-50 chance of cancer. Do you know what that is? Imagine this is a coin. It landed on tails. Oh, that's cancer, right? When you think about it in that way, okay, you start to appreciate these things. Now, I'm not saying that that was the switch for me. That was actually not the switch for me. I've had this way of thinking for a long time. But when I had that, that really put it in, it was a real confrontation. Really massive confrontation, right? I'd always been aware of it and I've always been thinking about it, but when you're then put in that situation, it's a shock. Now, for me, it's less of a shock because I've been expecting things like this. But for someone who's never expected or thought in this way, that would be massive. It's so overwhelming for them to conceptualize. But with that being said, thank you guys for listening. I want you guys to share this if you think that someone would benefit from it. If you think that I'm completely wrong, share it with someone as well. Come to me and talk about it. I'm always here to, hear alternative approaches. I don't think that this is the be-all and end-all what I said. I think it makes sense, but obviously there's a high level of cognitive bias towards what I say. What I say, I think it's right. That's how we work. But I hope you guys enjoyed it, and we'll catch you on the next episode.